Hey guys, Saf here with another Raid Shadow Legends video, and I'm back with another patch notes breakdown, and this is for patch 5.8 that came out last week. So we had some interesting changes. I think the biggest change is probably the referral system. We had a bunch of new champions added, a few epic champion balances that didn't really make a big difference, but you know, we'll take a look at those. And of course, we have got the new Forge Pass Season 3 added, which even though it's kind of a replication of Season 2 and Season 1, it has got a new artifact set and there were a few changes, so we're going to cover that. So in the patch notes breakdown, it's split into two parts. The first part, I go over the patch notes that Plarium have released, and in the second part then I'll take you through the sort of unofficial patch notes, which contains information that Plarium didn't put in their official patch notes that I've data mined out of the game, but is not officially confirmed by Plarium. So with that, let's take a look at the patch 5.8 notes that Plarium have provided us. Okay, so I got them up here. We've got some information on the referral program overhaul. Now, I think this is a great idea. We all want to see Plarium continue to develop the game, and that does require us to see new players joining the game and to give older players more options in terms of rewards for inviting those players in. Now, I'm sure a bunch of you probably just saw this as an opportunity to run alts just to get to level 40, 50, whatever you needed to get Chronum. I personally never did the referral system, so for me, I've got a long way to go if I do that. But I actually think I'm going to start a brand new account. A little bit of a leak here, if anyone watches the channel. I think on Friday, I'll be releasing the video of my, not really free to play, but my kind of new account playthrough where I probably won't spend that much money at all. It might be like the gem pack I might buy or something, a really low spend, just because I spend a bit too much on my main account. But this has given me kind of like that impetus to kind of get that done. I've been talking about it for weeks. So I think the referral program we've got here is great. Jamasa as a free champion just to get 3 referrals to level 10 is great. I mean, the champion is insane. It gives you a full team revive. It gives you that passive reflex kind of effect where it reduces your skills cooldown, which is broken at the moment. I'm going to cover that in the patch notes unofficial breakdown to explain why it's broken. And I think also Chronum is potentially kind of a ninja-like champion in the sense that he does have that triple A3 HP burn kind of burst. The only thing is he doesn't reapply it like ninja, so he's not as good, but he can do it. But he does have that weird passive where he reactivates that A2, so I think definitely on Spider he can compete with some speed teams, especially if you pair it with Jamasa. So I think these two champions, we're going to go into more detail after, but are very good. You also get a lot of rewards. You get 7 sacreds, you get about 12 epic books, a good chunk of void shards. What I want to test is how the referral points that they're talking about at that top bar works. I'll probably buy something on my new account when I create it just to see how many points I get, to see what the conversion is, because there's nothing in the data to really tell us that. But what have we got? So everyone knows by now you get the first 3 tracks. Once you get your first 3 referral accounts to level 50, you get that bonus sacred, and then you unlock another 3 slots, so slots 4 to 6. Once you get those to level 40, you get your Chronum, and there's a bunch of skins, a bunch of other things in there as well. They've made it quite valuable. We've got this thing down here about referral programs. If your player continues to play after level 50, you get points for every... So I think the way it works is every time they level up after 50, you'll get some points towards that tracked bar, and then if they buy something, I think regardless of the level, you get points. That buy-in thing is what I want to test. We also have some new champion skins. Let's jump into the game and take a look at them. So obviously the first one is Chronum. His skin is exclusive in the referrals, and I gotta say, this is the first skin where I've actually felt like they completely redesigned the champion. Midgard skin, I mean, when you compare him here, he's got ruffled, there's no, you know, he's pretty basic, and then you get like, boom, you know, swords of flaming on the wrists here. He's got his own mask. So I think actually that's a pretty cool skin to get, and it's totally free if you grind the alts, I guess, or if you invite enough friends. We've also got one for Jamasa here. So that's the basic skin, a little bit exposed, for a better word. And then we have the new skin here, which I actually really like. I like the helmet. Pretty cool champion looking skin. Again, very chilly still. As Hell Hades would say, chilly. Definitely a cool looking skin. But the thing I think everyone is going to be more interested in, and obviously that's the thing that we don't have, is Madame Cerise. Where is she? She's down here. We're going to get 2 new skins. We're going to get a Hellbirth skin and a Blood Veil. So this is the Hellbirth one, which looks phenomenal with the skulls. Did she have skulls floating around her? Oh, she has bats on the normal one. We've got some skulls on this one, which is kind of cool. Feels a bit like Hall's Ring. A little bit of a red hat there, like Spiral. It looks really awesome. And then we get the Blood Veil skin, which I actually prefer the Blood Veil, which is no surprise. It's probably the one that's going to cost more. She gets like a little kind of blood dripping around pretty cool. Now, I actually have an instinct here, and I don't know whether this is true. This is me guessing. It's nothing in the code, but if you've been collecting your Arbiter skin fragments here, I think the next one after Arbiter is going to be the Madame Cerise epic skin. I think that's what's going to happen, because you'll be on 95 fragments if you collected this from the point in which it was launched. It's the same thing with your Carl. Your Carl is currently on 95. So on reset next week, or is it tomorrow? Yeah, reset tomorrow, I'll have enough for your Carl. People have enough for the skin fragments. I expect that to be replaced by the epic Madame skin, which I think is going to be Hellbirth one. And then I think Bloodveil will be a bought one. But I think, that looks really cool. So those are the new skins. Let's jump back to the patch notes. So as I mentioned, Jamarson and Chronum are exclusive in the referral rewards. We don't know when we're going to be able to get the Madame Cerise. I have my own instinct, as I've said. I think the Bloodveil one will be a paid one. Then we get Forge Pass Season 3. I have done a video talking about Bolster specifically. I didn't do another video sort of talking about the changed rewards. They didn't change enough to really warrant another video, but effectively they've moved a little bit more of the rare forge charms for the Bolster stones into the free path. You also get that avatar, which basically translates to, I think, around about 5 more crafts of the 5 to 6 star for free, which is about a 50% increase. They've taken the rare from 400 to 700, so you get probably a lot more 4 to 5 star and 4 star stuff. I think they've also put 2 of the rank 6 percentage primary stat glyphs, so like the HP, attack, and defense. So not really that much significant changes. The quests are pretty much identical. I've bought the pass, so I've got the weekly. It's identical, it hasn't changed. But of course, the Bolster set makes it much more valuable. That set is insanely strong. If you haven't caught my Bolster set video, you should check that out. I released that, I think, yesterday or the day before. Go check that out. You will learn how you can convert any shield set into a protected shield. It is really, really insane. But I don't think there's much else to cover on Forge Pass Season 3. I think it's step in the right direction. I still think there's more growth to have in making those quests a little bit better. I still feel like the free pass needs a little bit more value in there, but otherwise it's not bad for 20 bucks. Then we've got all the new champions. I'm going to cover that in the unofficial patch notes. We're going to look at all the multipliers that we've got in there. We've got some champion rebounces. Lady Atessa, not really changed much. I mean, she's an alright epic, but when Farrakhan the Fat can do a full AoE ally attack, apart from himself, and a block, and I think a decreased defense and poisons, she doesn't really cut it. The one change here I would note is Jarang. I think Jarang's A3 is a pretty nice change. If you're trying to do clan boss early game and all you've pulled is Jarang, that's a pretty good ability because it's 100% uptime. I know it was a pretty good chance on a single target anyway, but it's nice that it's guaranteed pretty much on every ability. Otherwise, his kit's not too bad, but definitely I think that kind of A3 has improved him. I don't think he's suddenly like meta driven. He's just a good epic that if you pull early, he's going to be useful. If you want to use him in some of the secret rooms, could be very useful. Teshada, they've kind of reworked. Teshada is one of those champions that did like that split damage profile. They've clearly decided that's never going to happen again, so they've moved a lot of the older champions away from that. So they've changed the damage multiplier to be purely based on defense, made her a little bit more of a tankier champion, increased defense that way. Like, it's still 3 times at random to place a 15% weaker, and it's not really going to change the meta. She's an alright champion now. It goes up to 25%. I really don't really see the point of having the ascended and non-ascended. Who doesn't ascend their champions? So yeah, I think, it's an improvement. It's a revive in the Barbarian faction, but everyone's going to get Scylla the Drakes at 180 days, which immediately you're going to use over this champion because that's an AoE stun, and it's a heal every turn, and it's a strong A1. There's loads more benefit to it. Let's take a look at some of the bug fixes they've got here. This first one is pretty crazy to me. Fixed a bug where Yumiko's Destiny's Mirror skill would transfer debuffs to enemies under any debuff placed by Yumiko. Now debuffs only transfer to enemies under a hex. So I'm not sure how this works in detail. My initial thought was, if you put a toxic set on Yumiko, does that mean that it just transfers to anyone with a toxic? Could be that. It's a pretty significant nerf if that's the case, to be honest, even though it's already broken even with a hex out there on 100% uptime. But yeah, that was a pretty crazy change and thing to hear. It sounds like basically anytime a debuff was transferred, it would just permanently keep transferring. So yeah, if you've noticed any problems with that, or you think that's a major nerf, let me know in the comments below. Then we just have some usual bug fixes, like skills don't use, performance issues, fixed a bug that caused Tumisia not to be immune to fear debuffs when the Hydra head was under HP burn. That's nice, I guess. added information to the Heroes Path event about hero coins not being counted as points in quests, clan quests, or event-related missions. Well, I know for a fact that people were gaining points in event-related missions. So unless we've actually bug fixed it and not just added information to the info window, hero coins were giving you event-related mission points. There was 30, get to 30k in missions towards your Romantu. It was working. So I don't know whether they fixed that or not. Let me know if you're, in the next Heroes Path when we get it, if you still get that. But it's a bit strange they haven't actually said we fixed the bug. It's just we've added some text. Fixed a bug that caused an error message to appear when players try to use Painkeeper's combat tactics skill. Okay, I've never had that before. So that's the end of the patch notes. I got to say, the actual patch is a bit light in terms of features. We do have a lot of extra features around it. We've also got the new fusion and a bunch of other things. But actually, when you think about some of the previous patches, tavern changes, forge changes, we haven't actually had an awful lot this patch. The referral system is just more rewards. It's not actually a sort of a system improvement. And then the forge pass is just basically a better set. It's still the same system. So it's quite a light patch. Let's now jump over to the unofficial part and talk about some of the things they didn't tell you about. So as with every patch note breakdown, I give a disclaimer at the start here. This section is data mined information, things that are available in the game code on the live servers that I've exported out and I've read and I've translated and understood what they mean. This isn't officially endorsed by Plarium, so take that as you will, but it is in the game code, so it's fairly accurate. And if most things I say in my previous videos, you can go back and have a look at the patch note breakdowns. They tend to become true. So let's take a look. So first thing, bolster set. Let's break this down a little bit more detail. I'm not going to go into as much detail as I did in my other video. I did a full shield kind of for science video. You can check it out. It'll give you all the information about any shield in the game. I'll put a link above my head here for you to go check that out. But just to give you some summary, it's a 30% protected shield and it's a 10% heal per turn based on the max HP of the wearer of the set. It has protection mode 1, which means it is very much like Lana Tharel's A2 shield. You cannot increase it and decrease it. You cannot grow the shield. You cannot remove the shield. It cannot be stolen, and it can't be influenced by enemies or allies in any way or at all. It means you cannot use bolster to provide buffs to your seer. So don't do that. She won't be able to buff strip it. That is available only in Forge Pass Season 3. Some people have been concerned about the pay to win aspect of this. What I would say is, based on my findings, I actually think bolster set just makes normal shield sets really strong, because if you use a shield set with a bolster set, the shield set becomes protected. Check out my video for more information about how that works, but I don't think it's as pay to win as everyone thinks. I think definitely it's worth the $20 if you're a low spender and you only buy the gem pack. The rewards you get in the actual Forge Pass is well worth it. But even if you only do the free set and you get yourself some really rubbish 3 to 4 star, you can use that in your teams even at the highest level. Some news about Deliana. It's not been mentioned anywhere, but she is now summonable from any shard. Her event is over. They did say after the event was over, you would be able to summon Deliana. Now that is the case. In terms of the arena daily defeats updates, we've been seeing this being tweaked sort of patch on patch. It's been relatively quiet in arena lately. People seem to be quite happy with where it is. I know plat is still quite significantly risky and it's a bit sort of plat resets a little bit hit or miss, but I've heard a lot less noise about the sort of situation of arena. It doesn't feel like people are saying it's really, really hard, but they have increased the daily defeats for Gold 5 again. It's gone up from 20 to 25. So we'll have to see if that has any impact. This basically means how many defeats you can take in a day and lose points for your ranking in Gold 5. So you can lose up to 25. If you get beaten a 26th time, you won't lose any of your ranking points. We've got the updated champions here now. So Teshada is the only one that's had any sort of damage multiplier change. I'm not really going to cover in this section like the kit of the champion and whether that's changed into a good extent. I'm really just focusing on the data mined information, which is the multipliers. So we can see here that she's gone from a 2 times defense and a plus 1.8 times attack on her A1. That's now just a flat 3.4 defense. And of course, her A1 skill will now be an increased defense buff, not an increased attack. That comes out as about strong. And then her A2 being a random attack, we only consider random as a single target. Obviously, if you've only got one enemy target, then this rating goes up. But as a random attack, we only focus on one hit. That's gone from a 1.4 defense plus 1 attack to a 2 times defense. And that is coded as weak, which is not a surprise. Most randoms are coded as weak. Let's go through the new champions. I'm going to go through the 4 epics and the fusion first, and we're going to cover the legendaries, and then we're going to cover the referral at the end. So the first epic we got here is Carlinia. She's a Sacred Order epic. She's very much a support champion and kind of like Candle Guard 2.0. She is a fine fan of the different candlestick sort of attire. She's got it on a staff. I wouldn't have thought a weapon is very good with candlesticks, but maybe she's found some way to ionize the candles, who knows. Her kit is very average but good in some respects. I feel like if you made this a legendary and sort of upgraded all the debuffs and the chances to a legendary quality of chances, it'd actually be a pretty good champion. You know, her passive is kind of useful. She could kind of like, if a HP burn goes off, she reduces buffs. That's pretty useful in places, especially in Hydra where Mischief could be running rampant or someone's got some different things. Obviously, it won't reduce protected buffs like the Poison Cloud, but it's quite useful. She's got a lot of protection in her kit. She's also got a lot of unresistible debuffs, and she does work well with HP burn. So she feels like a Hydra epic champion that you might use as you transition into different difficulties. But again, it's all like the worst buffs, like 15% strength, and it's not 100% chance. So that's where she loses a bit of her charm. She's not really a damage dealer here, as would make sense. But I have got the multipliers. It's a 793 base attack. They're good multipliers, but the base attack is so low that it's never going to do any damage. We've got an average A1 and a weak A2. Is she worth getting? She's not a bad champion. If you haven't got many sort of debuff cleansers, you don't have many sort of good defensive options. I think the passive has some value in places. I just think she is a little bit too epic-y for a lot of late game accounts to be useful, and you might out progress her pretty quickly with other champions. Now, my personal favorite of the epics this time is Anchorite. I think this guy is actually quite good. He is one of the few champions in the game that can do a 3-turn cooldown, 1 buff extension on the A2. That's quite important for many sort of 2-1 comps in Clan Boss. I think only Godseeker is in the epic pool. You do have that rare that gets used for the Infinity comp that has the weaken on the A1, but this guy can also do it as well. So if you're looking to put like kind of like that buff extension with an increased speed, which is sometimes really important for running a 2-1 comp, this guy is, you know, doesn't bring anything else to the fight, but he does bring that. He's also got increased crit rate and increased crit damage on an AoE on 4 turns for a 2-turn cooldown. That's 2 powerful buffs. The crit rate is more important than the crit damage. You could run your clan boss with less stats if you can find a way to sustain them. But remember, he will do A3 into an extend on A2, so it's not quite 2 turns. It's probably 3 turns when you work it out if you can build it correctly. We also have an AoE A1, which is great for progression. You can put a stun set on him. He will heal the lowest HP champion. I think this guy all around is nothing crazy, but he's also not terrible, and I actually think he might have some late game to end game viability in certain teams. Even in Hydra, you know, he's got an ability to remove debuffs in the on the A2 as well. So definitely an interesting option. He is attack based, but it doesn't really matter. He's not there to deal damage. The A1 is going to be an average with a base attack of 1046, good base speed, 2.9 attack. You build him in a stun set, and he's your support, and he will carry you, or you build him in a specific clan boss team. I don't think he's the best epic in the game, but I actually think he's not bad at all. Next up is Yelagina. This is probably the only real damage dealer in this set of champions, if I'm being honest, apart from Chronom, I think, at the end. She's got a good base attack. It's a bit low. I'd have preferred like maybe 1 or 2 ticks up. Around about 1450 would have been nice. Quite slow at base 995. Now, her most important quirk is she can revive someone if she kills someone every 2 turns. It's that cooldown. That's quite handy. The only problem is her kit's a little bit freaky. I think the sort of standout skill on her kit is the A3. It hits quite hard. I did some testing and sort of playing around with it. It hits really hard, and it is a guaranteed crit, so you don't need to run crit rate for that. The only problem is the other skills don't crit by default either, so you still need to run crit rate, so that effect that it guarantees crits a little bit weird. She does lock people out on 100% chance, block active skills and block buffs. That's pretty nice. I wouldn't say that's terrible. We have got an AoE 100% decrease attack. That's pretty good. And then we've also got a single target attack on the A1 that also gives herself the increased attack buff. So she kind of buffs herself. She brings a lot of utility, but it's kind of like that weird thing of, well, am I meant to be a debuffer, or am I meant to be a damage dealer, or am I a reviver? She's kind of really, I think she's really good for faction wars if you are struggling in the orcs. Obviously there's Old Man Jorg, but there's not a lot of revive options in the orc faction. But I think this champion is actually quite solid. I think a lot of people probably discredit her because of the weirdness of her kit, but that is a 6.1 times attack multiplier on the A3. That is strong. So looking at her kit then, as I said, A1 is a 2.1 times attack times 2, strong. The A2, the AoE is a 4 times attack, and that's strong. As I said, if this was a little bit more based attack, maybe if we got another like 5% in the books, I think this could have been a godlike nuke. As it is, it's not quite. And then we get the single target nuke that doesn't require crit rate, 6.1 times attack, and that's strong. So you can one-shot something very easily with that skill. But as I said, it's a bit of a weird kit, but it is 100% chance to land decrease attack on an AoE. It's 100% chance to land a single target, block active skills and block buffs. I'll leave you decide. I actually am a bit on the fence with this champion. I think it's really good, but I just don't know where you would play it. Next up, we got Wuji. Wuji is a Shadowkin and probably one of the worst base HPs you'll ever see in the game. I have no idea why they put it at 10,000. It feels like they've missed a number here. Even like champions like Ruel, who are renowned for being super squishy, basically got a higher base HP than this champion. I know it's an epic, but dear God, 10,000, especially when the champion is designed to somewhat be hit because of the A1 mechanic. What is the purpose of this champion? It's pretty much designed for Hydra. It's got an AoE block buff that isn't guaranteed on the A2, which is a bit disappointing. The A1 is a single target unless she counterattacks, and then it becomes an AoE. And on that A1 then, she does a weaken. Now, she doesn't bring anything support-wise to the team, but she might bring a lot of damage. I know Nubkex has done a video with her, but really at 10,000 HP, she's going to be a pain to keep alive. What have we got in terms of base attack? 1498, that's really good. That's kind of like what I wanted Yelagina to be. 97 base speed is on the lower end, but it's not terrible. If we're hitting with a single target, it's a 3 times attack on the A1. If we're hitting with the AoE, it's a 2.5 times attack, and that becomes weak then. So it's not a very strong damage ability. The A2 is a 4 times attack. That is quite strong. Again, I think if it had a little bit more damage in the books, it's only got 10%. Most damaging abilities have about 20%. I think that could have been godlike with that base attack, but it's not quite there. And she's going to be impossible to keep alive. So you can't really use her as a nuker. If you're going to use her in Hydra, you're going to need to bring a strong team around her to keep her alive or revive her a lot. But she does do her own counterattack and her own perfect veil, so she does build her own kit. I don't know. I think the base HP is the biggest problem here. Then, of course, we come to Lonatharil, the new fusion. Pretty much as his multipliers here state, is a bit of an average champion. He has got an exceptionally high base HP. 23,130 is one of the highest base HPs in the game. 99 speed is decent, but a little bit slow. And on the A1 then, obviously it's designed to destroy HP with the damage he deals. It's going to be average damage, so it's going to take you a while. This ability here shouldn't have been based on damage dealt. It should have been based on per attack and just remove 2.5% of the enemy's max HP rather than it being a sort of 30% of the damage dealt. A bit like what Skull Lord's passive does. The A2 then is the Funky Shield. It is a 3-turn shield, 3-turn cooldown. If you do it and your whole team is alive, it's a 20% shield, flat. If you do it and one of your team is dead, one or more, it'll be a protected 30% shield, very much like the new bolster set. You won't be able to buff strip, do it, or anything. So don't think you can use that protected shield with Seer. It won't work, but it is a 30% shield then. It's a bit quirky. Again, I've said this in different places. I think that shield should have been based on whether the champion was on max HP or whether it was on 50% HP. I don't like the fact I have to kill a champion to make the best part of his kit work. He's also got a full team ally attack on the A3. There's only 2 other champions in the game that do a full team ally attack. I think, unless Lanakis does a full team, I'm not too sure. But I'm pretty sure he's like the 3rd champion that does that. So in terms of quantity, he becomes the 3rd best ally attacker. But in terms of actual utility and everything else the kit brings, people like Kreela, Lanakis, Varric the Fat, they're going to overtake this champion as an ally attacker. And then, of course, we have that weird passive where he's going to suddenly be a damage dealer because you give him 20% more damage if he attacks a shielded target. Again, that passive should have just been, if your team is shielded, they take 20% less damage. Make him a defensive support. Then he's a good champion. In his current form, bang average. Then we start getting onto the juicy champions. Theodore the Savant. Now, I didn't really pick up on how OP this champion was going to be until I saw more of his kit and more people using it. This guy's mental. If you think of Dark Hail, he's like a Giga Charged Dark Hail. He will be the best champion probably for Ice Golem 25, even potentially better than Bad L for doing this content because he can activate the poisons and he can land a substantial amount on an AoE. The biggest problem with Dark Hail, he's single target. So it's nice that he targets the boss, but when you get to the boss on the Ice Golem wave, you've got to kill the allies first, and that slows you down. This guy does the same ability as Dark Hail, the A3 where he does poison sensitivity and poisons, but he does it AoE. And then on his A3, he will extend all the poison debuffs and then activate them. Now, the good thing about activating poisons on Ice Golem is you cannot trigger the Ice Golem's passive. He also doesn't attack on any of his activations, only on his A1. Which means that there's less opportunity for you to accidentally proc his passive, unlike Dark Hail, who can technically proc the passive on the A1. He's also a better affinity. So I think for Ice Golem 25, probably for Dragon speed farming, this guy is going to become the new king of the meta. He is defense based, which means he's going to be easy to build and keep alive. He's got a great base speed of 105. A1 3.1 times defense is average, but we've got to factor in the fact he's not there to do damage necessarily. It's the poisons that he's going to be able to kill everyone with and keep racking up and activating and cycling through. This champion is probably the best champion of the patch, alongside Snick Track, which is the next champion we're going to look at. I really like this champion. He's HP based. He's got a really strong base HP of 22,965. Base speed is 99. That's not a problem when you see what his kit is designed to do. This guy is going to make Reflect in the arena possibly a reality. He has a passive that basically giga charges the Reflect up to where it needs to be. He also is pretty hard to kill himself. If you're still trying to progress in Clan Boss and you're struggling, you haven't got an unkillable, and you pull this guy, his A3 is going to be insane. It's a Reflect and it's also an Ally Protect. It will keep your team alive. He also will proc Leech anytime someone attacks a Reflect damage buffed champion in your team. So if you put that A3 out and the Clan Boss attacks you, bam, a Leech goes out. Once there's a Leech out, his A1 is guaranteed to land decreased attack. So it's reliability. He will keep your team alive no end. His passive is what makes him special for me. He will reflect 50% of the damage back to anyone who attacks him. In addition, he will also reflect the reflect damage amount back. So he's getting 2 procs. Any ally who is buffed by his reflect damage will also reflect 20% more of that reflect damage back. It won't affect him, but it'll affect the allies. So it might make, in arena, reflect an actual viable strategy. I'll have to see. Obviously, people need to pull him. The only thing to note about reflect, obviously if you're shielded, the shield doesn't count as damage, so it can't reflect any damage back for the shield damage values. But once you start hitting HP pools, that will count. So you kind of want to build him a bit like Vogoth, very squishy, maybe with a reaction piece. Don't put a shield on him and watch as he pretty much makes it really difficult to kill him. Because on that A3, he's also got a 50% self-heal, so he'll be able to sustain himself back up. In terms of actual damage, as you'd imagine, he's not a big damage dealer. But we've got HP based, so even if you don't build him for damage, stick 100% crit rate on him and he will do some damage. We've got an average A1 at 0.25 and then an AoE which is 0.35 is also average. Finally, the last champion is a Void Legendary here, outside of these kind of new summonable champions, is Raka Viletide. When I first saw this champion, I immediately thought of a variant of Duchess Lilitu for the Orc faction. It's not quite the same. It's a little bit more of a healer champion, and it's also got some really frustrating parts. It's got an AoE revive on a 4-turn cooldown. That's great. The only problem is she's probably going to do that on auto, a bit like Ursala the Mourner, because it says will place the block debuffs buff even if there are no dead allies. That tells me on default, so arena defense, this champion is not going to be very viable because she's going to blow her revive when you don't need it. On offense, it could be quite useful because she does do a full team cleanse with an increased attack. So if you're running with someone like a Candrathon in a go second team for an offense go second, then it gives you a different option to Duchess, who just places the block debuffs and increased attack. Obviously, on a go second offense, you would expect to proc the Candy Veil, so you should hopefully keep your team alive. You then go with the A2, boom, he gets the increased attack, you lose any debuffs you put on him, great. Awesome damage. We do have this quirky little passive with her, could be interesting to speed tune with. It's not really an active skill, but it happens anyway. Every 2 turns, she's going to increase everyone's turn meter by 10%, so she's going to keep the team moving. And then she's got this passive effect where she'll place continuous heals on people, and she's got a heal on an A1. So I'm not too sure about this legendary. It's a Void Legendary. I do see some usages in a sort of a cleanse kind of role, go second in offense. Because the fact she will use her A3 even when there are no dead allies, I think that kind of reduces her defense options considerably. And I don't really see where you would use it over someone like Duchess in kind of PvE. In terms of damage, as you'd imagine as well, not a damage dealer. She is attack based. 1134 attack, very fast, 109 base speed, and then we've got a 3.8 times attack, and it's an average damage. Do I think this champion is very good as a Void Legendary? I don't think it's the worst, but I don't necessarily think her kit is set up to be the best. If the block debuffs was put on the A2, she's godlike. Because it's not, she becomes a little bit more average. Let's talk about Jamasa. I mentioned at the top of this video, her passive is currently bugged. Why is Jamasa good? Well, most of her kit is rubbish. She works with Chronum, so the A2 will activate Chronum's A2, which I'll explain in the next slide. The A3 is cool. It's a full team revive, so if you're a brand new player, Just go and spin up some bot accounts, get yourself to level 10, get your Jamasa quickly. It's a free epic, it's a free full team revive. It will help you carry. The big thing about Jamasa is her passive. She has got a built-in reflex set, effectively. Every time an ally takes an ability, there's a 20% chance it reduces that cooldown of that ability by 1 turn. Right now it's bugged. Right now it's coded at 95%. It's a pretty easy bug to change. You just need to go in and change the chance Plarium. I don't know why we need to release it in a future update. It's a 5-second fix. It could even be they fixed it now. I haven't looked, but that is what the bug is right now. Instead of 20% coded, it's coded at 95%. So if you've got Jamasa, you might be able to abuse that passive for a little longer, but don't expect it to last. Even when they've bug fixed it, it's still pretty nuts. It's a built-in reflex. It may not necessarily make it into every endgame team, but in the early to mid and somewhat towards the late game, she's really strong, and you can transition her then to be a Chronum ally support. As you'd imagine, again, it's a support champion. This patch is not big for damage dealers. 903 base attack. She is attack based. Good base speed of 105 for an epic. That's really high. 4 times attack, it's average. Now the legendary here, Chronum, is the most interesting one. He's got a really good base attack, 1564, and good base speed of 101. He's going to hit reasonably hard. His A1 is a double hit, 1.5 times attack. That's strong. That's good. It will do some extending of the debuffs of, I think, HP burn. The A2 is what his kit is all about. We'll cover that in a second. And then we got the A3, which is a 4 times attack, and that's a HP burn. I think the only reason why it doesn't make godlike is the number of damage books in his A3 is quite low. Again, normally damage and abilities have 20% or even 25%. He has 10%. So that's why that didn't quite make it up there, is because he lacks some damage in his books. Otherwise, it probably would have been close to godlike. So the way you play Chronum is going to be all around his passive. You would use the A3 to get your HP burn out. He's going to gain 15% turn meter per HP burn. So if that's in Spider, that's pretty much a free turn. If that's in Doom Tower, it's almost a free turn. He then is going to come in with his A2. And that's going to be a 3 hit at random, activate the HP burn. Now you could get super unlucky and hit the same 3 spiders twice. It's going to be unlikely, but that means you've got 3 procs of the A2. Then Jamasa can come in and use her A2 to activate the A2 again. That's going to be another 3 hits at random that activates HP burn. His passive then, if Jamasa is on the same team, will allow him to activate that A2 every 5 active abilities of either your allies or your enemies. Now, the Spiderlings don't have active abilities, they're just going to attack with A1, so that won't count. However, you could put 2 Cold Hearts in your team, so you would go 2 abilities on Chronum. Jamasa does A2, that's 1 activation. Cold Heart, that's another activation. You can see quickly how you could potentially really speed run the Spider. Even on an early account, if you can get this champion pretty early, he's going to be really, really good. Long term, if you're fighting bosses, he is kind of a mini ninja. He just can't sustain his HP burn, so you're going to need to bring to like sort of secondary HP burn sources. So that brings us to the end of the patch notes. A little bit lengthy there with the champion multipliers, giving you a bit of a breakdown of how I would see the champions being played. I definitely don't think the fusion is anything to be shouting home about. I'm probably going to end up getting it just because I summoned a lot for trying to get Shemnath because he was one of my top 5 wanted champions. And of course, I got a Robar. That's what that's what you get, a wonderful Robar, which ironically, just as a side note, why has Robar got the worst defense ever? 694. He basically has less defense than the uncommon Warboy. On that note, I'll catch you in the next video.